So welcome to a COVID-19 Tough Decisions for Business Owners. This is episode 23, the do's and don'ts of managing work performance. We started this webinar series back in March, a week after Ontario was put into emergency social isolation. And it was in response to a need to help managers and business owners and HR decision makers to kind of understand what was going on and how to have different tips and strategies on how to manage and navigate through these very, very difficult times. If you like us, do tag us at PeopleBright or at hashtag COVID-19 TDBO. A little bit about myself. I am the founder and president of PeopleBright Consulting. We're a full HR services firm, and I'm the creator of Connect with RevUp. This is a management and training program that really helps people build stronger workplaces and helps managers with their performance, their people management skills. I'm passionate about creating healthy workplaces, and this goes back to my past, where my husband and I had our own engineering company, and we grew that company from 2 people to 125 people in 7 offices across Canada. We felt we created a special place where people were valued, had challenging work, and it was a really strong work culture. We actually were recognized as one of the best workplaces in Canada, top 10 twice. I have a background in HR and have been a successful entrepreneur for many, many years. I work in the areas of healthcare, engineering, professional services, IT, not-for-profits, and I'm a Fascination certified advisor. So what I want to share with you today is the tips and strategies that will help you manage work performance. And I want this to be interactive. I want you to share some of your concerns so that I can give you tips and strategies, because it's such a broad field, and I'll touch upon some points, but I really do have some polls, and I want to get a sense of where people are at. So the first thing I want to discuss is really one of the ways to manage poor work performance is to not have poor work performance. And one of those ways is developing trust to motivate and engage staff. The other thing I want to share with you is what this Connect with RevUp approach is and how it can effectively help you with your communication skills and how to be a better manager. The third is establishing clear expectations. Next, handling work performance concerns, and then creating a culture of accountability. So work performance, how do we foster the good and improve the bad? Because it's not just about dealing with bad. It is optimizing work performance so you don't have the bad, or when you do have the bad performances, they are corrected early in the stage. So think of your management as kind of a dashboard, and the foundation of it will be accepting the approach of Connect with RevUp. Then you can build those trusting relationships, look at those communicating clear expectations, look at creating that culture of accountability. When people do not feel accountable, they may not have that optimum work performance because they don't have any expectations. They can just do what they want, or they don't know what to do, so they don't do anything. Foster performance development, which is different from performance management, and I'll get into what that means shortly. And then address performance concerns. So start with the foundation is an approach I want to share with you called Connect with RevUp. And what is RevUp? RevUp is an acronym. RevUp also sounds like, wow, there's a lot of energy. Let's rev up, let's get going. I created this concept based on the success my husband and had building a strong work culture. And I articulated it in a way that is easy to understand, and that's RevUp. So RevUp stands for 5 words. Respect, which is building trust and holding people in high regard. Equality, treating people as equals, meaning that their role is equally as important as my role or any other role in the organization. And to have an open, honest communication, to treat people as equals in that treat them how they want to be treated, not necessarily how you want to be treated. The next one is valued, as in I value you. When people feel valued, they actually have a sense of belonging. They feel more connected, which means they're more engaged. So it's how you make people feel. It's often not what you say, but how what you say it made them feel. So make people feel valued. Then look at people's uniqueness. There are people whose strengths are maybe where your areas are needing further development, or that you really aren't strong at it. You'll never be strong and you don't care to be strong. There are people that maybe have those unique qualities that really complement you and complement members of your team. So look for what makes that person unique and capitalize on it by building that potential in them. So that's the concept of Rev Up. The next thing I want to talk about is building trusting relationships. So I want to put up poll number 1, if you'll do that for us, Jenny. If you want to read out that aloud.
Yeah, so poll number 1, what are some of the things you do to help build trust among your team? This is a multiple choice, so pick all that apply.
So I'm going to let them look at that, and I'm going to share a little bit about how to build trust. So I can't actually see the screen, so if people will start voting, that'll be good, and then we can share those results shortly. So how do you build trust? You build trust by showing respect, and respect means treating people as equals. The second thing is to listen and learn about that person. Build that relationship, and in order to build a relationship, you need to kind of know who that person is. So listen and learn from them. Then look at their uniqueness, as I said. Build into what their uniqueness is and help build that potential. I see, and the fourth thing is work towards creating winning solutions. Building trust over a period of time will help you engage the staff more, build that relationship, and you can tap into their strengths and know what to expect. We do have the poll completed now, so Jenny, if you want to end that poll and share the results.
So yeah, some of the things that people have done to help build trust among their teams is to really listen and show their concerns for the staff member. They do understand that it is a continuous process built on developing an open and honest relationship. And also, they know that they need to treat people with respect and show them courtesy and speak in a respectful tone of voice.
Good. And people realize it is a continuous process.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm just looking at the polls now. Yeah, and it's interesting, half the people socialize and initiate team and event gatherings. I think sometimes as a manager, you wonder where that line of relationship is. You know, if I go out, is that to be seen to show favoritism amongst people? But you'll sense that what the right thing to do is. I love the fact that people will treat people with respect and show them courtesy and speak in a respectful tone, because this really does make a lot of sense and it means a lot to people. So the other thing that's really important is really communicating clear expectations. So I actually want you guys to go to poll number 2 now, and I'll get Jenny to walk you through that one.
Right. So when I have a new member join my team, I get to know them better by, and you would pick all that apply again.
I think it's so important to have clear expectations. I remember early on in my managerial days, the manager who was, I was actually an educator at the time, the manager of my nursing floor, because I was a nurse in my earlier life, the manager said, I manage not to put out fires. I manage so that when I'm not here, my people know what to do. So she set clear expectations. And that's what I also did when I started my job as a manager. I would introduce myself to every employee, and as new employees came on, and I'd share with them my expectations. It really helped them to understand. I think we're going to close the poll now. So if you can share those results.
Great. Most of the people have an introductory informal meeting to get to know them, both personally and professionally. And they also share their expectations, so that really ties into what we're going to talk about next. Share my expectations about role expectations and methods of communication.
And I think the other one I see is I ask them about how they work and learn best. Because I think sometimes people don't realize that. They expect the person to do a job, but they don't understand that this person works best with minimum supervision, or this person works with deadlines, or this person learns best by going to a Google site and getting a tutorial. Others like the conversation and learning that way. So it's really, really important.
I think one thing to note is actually no one voted for keeping their relationship professional. So no questions about their personal life. So I think that's an interesting point, because yeah, sometimes you do have to know them both personally and professionally.
And I do think that's really important, because sometimes that helps you understand maybe why they come on in the evening after work and they leave early. And you should have had that communication, right? If a person needs to get home in time to pick up their kids from daycare, not relevant right now, but if they did, pick them up from daycare by 5 o'clock, so they have to leave at 4:30 every day, but you know they're going to go on for another extra hour in the evening. So those are the kind of important communications that affect personal life. So we wanted to share with you the concept of clear expectations. If you said to somebody, build me a tree house, and all you said was, build me a tree house and I want you to use woods and make sure there's a door. This is the concept that you may get from 4 of your employees. No 2 people will have that same concept. So the clearer your expectations are, the closer they're going to get to what you wanted. If you said, I want to build a treehouse with a slide in it, then one person has met your expectation. But if you didn't give anything, everybody has met the expectation because they did build me or you a treehouse. So some of the things that I want to highlight with you when we talk about expectations is, make sure you have clear expectations on what the roles are, and follow up if it's less than expected, because this will help with responsibility, accountability, and the complexity. Because sometimes you expect the person to deal with the situation in a more complex way than you have articulated, and then get surprised. So make sure you do have that understanding. And then communication. So the example I gave earlier was the person who has a deadline to get home every day to pick up their child before the daycare closes. You would have that discussion to talk about, when do I expect you to be at work, and when do I expect you to communicate with me. I had one person who was given an assignment, and then he would go home without sharing that with the manager. And then the manager said, excuse me, you didn't, expected you to deliver the survey by the end of the day today, and you didn't. He said, well, I didn't quite finish it, so I was going to give it to you tomorrow. Never said anything to the manager, never shared that he was still working on it, that he had a problem. So this is the kind of expectation you need to say is, how do I update you? And what's the best form? So whatever expectation, I know that Jenny and I communicate, she likes WhatsApp. So I will always check my WhatsApp and comment to her. And then if we need larger things, it'll be email. So we've come to that expectation of how we communicate each other, what we do with deadlines, what we do with follow-up and timeliness. when you're doing the project, just like I gave you the example with the treehouse, try to paint the overall picture, but be more clear in terms of what the expectations are and what the estimated times to do things. When I have younger staff, when they first start out, I might say, please do this, and it should take you about 2 hours. So if it doesn't, talk to me, because that means that likely they're running into problems or they don't know how to interpret the assignment and maybe are doing way too much research on it or going in a direction that you didn't want. And then always keep validating. It sounds like through the poll that you guys kind of get it. The other thing is I want to talk about creating a culture of accountability. More and more companies are realizing that if they don't create a culture of accountability, that the performance, the engagement can be impacted. So creating a culture of accountability can have benefits. And I like this particular slide because it kind of shows you when you don't have clear expectations and norms of the workplace, what you can get is this kind of culture of blaming people or inaction. You know, somebody says, no, that person did it, or I'm not responsible, that's not my job. So this is the kind of thing that can happen when you don't have a culture of accountability. Whereas when you do create a culture of accountability, you have people that are action oriented, that are doing it, that are working to solving problems. And if they don't finish the work, they'll own it, they'll take responsibility. That's my fault, I need to fix that. Or yeah, let's work on this as a team together. What could we do better next time around? Are there any comments? Please use the chat line to kind of share thoughts or confirm, hey, yeah, that makes sense. Do you say anything in the chat line? I forgot to mention that people should use that chat line. Jenny?
No, we actually have a question.
Sure.
Just about how people are holding event gatherings in this work from home environment.
So most people are doing it remotely and doing kind of social events where they'll actually have a Zoom call instead of having a meeting to do work. They might say, hey, Friday at 3, we're going to have social hour, and let's just, gather together, bring your favorite drink or dessert, and let's have a chat. And the chat will be not about business, it'll be social. Some companies I know, they used to have yoga or fitness in their office because they're a huge company, and so they continue to have that on Zoom at the time that they normally would have it. Anybody, other people putting in comments in the chat line, sharing what they've done?
Yeah, Lauren actually also mentioned Zoom. And everyone, if you would like to speak, feel free to like raise your hand. I think that's what it is, and I can allow you to talk. But yeah, like Zoom, I think remote sharing with coworkers, that's usually the thing to go nowadays.
And some people have created interest groups, particularly if you're a large organization, they might have an interest group for, book reading. Some people are gamers, and they'll say, hey, let's all go and play whatever the latest game is. I don't know. My kids, they're playing games, but I the names escape me right now. So some people might create a game room and say, hey, anybody interested in playing, ABC, let's go in, and today's the date. So be creative, think of events that may resonate with some of your staff. Now there's social distancing, which will allow for groups of 10. I don't know that a lot of people are interested in doing that, but that's certainly something that some companies are starting to do. But again, it's limited to 10 people. All right, so in creating a culture of accountability, you want to make sure you do it throughout the whole, right from the beginning. And that means hiring talent that demonstrates accountability. I can recall many times when I've had people say, well, that's not my job, or you don't pay me to do that, or, oh, that's what she's supposed to do, I don't do that. So it's it's all that kind of below the line comments that I made. So when you hire people, ask those kinds of questions that demonstrate accountability. It may be as simple as share a project that you're most proud of and what was your role in that. And when you hear the role that the person created, it can sometimes show you accountability. You know, I created a new system for streamlining the way we deliver products to our clients and reduced it by 2 days. That shows a person that is motivated, that gets things done. When a person says, you know, something that's a little bit more simplistic, and if that's the best that they can do, you say, well, that's more of a kind of a generic thing that's part of their role rather than taking responsibility and initiative. Another question could be, tell me a time when you did something that needed to be reviewed and improved, and how did you handle that? Make sure that you set those clear expectations and goals of accountability, and they'll be different for the different roles in the organization. The organization itself may have clear expectations of accountability, and then as a manager and a staff member, you will have goals that are more relevant to you in that role or responsibility. Obviously, managers have a bigger responsibility and accountability, and staff have individual accountability for what they are working on. When you do evaluations and follow-up, do address concerns, and when you do, also give praise, and that will foster accountability. People are more likely to do better when you give them feedback because they feel they're valued, they feel that you've heard them, and that you know what they're doing. You know, it's really, people want to be noticed in a positive way. And if you reinforce that, they will continue to do more and more for you. The next thing I want to touch upon is fostering performance development. So poll number 3, if you can start that one for us, Jenny. I use the word performance development because the term performance management is less fostering of growth. Performance management means I'm managing you, I am making sure things are done. Performance development looks at, I want to help you maximize, optimize your potential. So the term now is about performance development as opposed to management. People still use people management or performance management, but the trend is towards development, and I'll explain that shortly. So if you'll go ahead and put your comments in the poll, and if Jenny, you can lead this section.
Right, so still waiting for some more people to answer the poll. Just a quick overview. What are some of the activities you do to assess your staff's performance? So some have been replying, and it seems like informal chats on professional goals or performance, and praise and recognition for a job well done is the majority for now.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah,
So
that's so.
It seems that less and less people are doing semi-annual and annual performance appraisals. We've got 50%. If you want to end the poll right now, Jenny, and so 50% of people are doing semi-annual performances. So it begs the question is it because your organization doesn't do it, or because you haven't gotten around to doing it? Because I think that's oftentimes the biggest problem, is getting them done. And people will say, I've been here for 5 years and I never had a performance appraisal done. So very interesting. It was good to see that a lot of people are doing informal chats and praise and recognition for job well done. So in the past, as I said, thinking has been more towards annual performance appraisals, goal setting for areas of improvement, and doing them for a purpose of compensation. The trending now is that rather than have annual performance management, that it's more frequent check-ins. And this really is supportive of the millennials and the Gen Zs. They are used to continuous feedback as they were growing up in the various programs that they took. So this is normal for them. And one study I read said that the millennials and Gen Zs expect on average 7 touch points a week. And people said, how am I going to do that? Well, the touch point doesn't have to always be about performance management. It could just be even, hi, how are things going, or a phone call or a project meeting. But there needs to be that kind of touch point. The other thing is, rather than looking at performance development management as looking backwards, performance development talks about looking forward. And when you talk about when you have a sit down to really talk about performance, you talk about where the future is, not what person's done in the past. The coaching, the focus will be coaching and development more, and it is a two-way evaluation rather than the manager just doing the evaluation. And now people are looking at more pay for performance rather than being fair and compensating based on, everybody needs the same range of compensation. It's a conversation now, as opposed to before a decision on compensation, as I mentioned. And the tone really is one of inspiring and developed. So I love the poll and how people were saying, yes, I have more chats and I'm supporting people. I think you still need to do something a little bit more formally and have that in writing. But again, it's more performance development, and those goal setting really should be about looking at how you look at that uniqueness and really help build that potential. As I mentioned, that foundation of connecting with RevUp. Look at developing the person and their career or their roles. The last thing I really want to talk about is the performance evaluation, and wanted to leave enough time for some discussion on that and some approaches. So what I want you to do is another poll, and I'll ask Jenny to start the poll.
So for number 4 poll, I keep doing that. When it comes to have difficult conversations, what do I do? And so you pick all that and apply.
Okay, want to end the poll? You guys are getting faster at this.
So I think most people are a little bit more confident about difficult conversations. They still have a little bit worry, but most of us think that it's still doable, right? They're more confident at carrying out these difficult conversations.
I think the more you do it, the more you get comfortable. You may never be totally comfortable. I still find terminations is probably the most difficult, because you're affecting somebody's livelihood and their family. And I coach my managers, if they're going to be going into a termination, usually an HR person should be there with the manager, but I coach the manager and I say the day when it becomes easy is the day when you probably need to stop, being a manager, because we are social people. We do have consciences. So that will probably be the most difficult thing when you have to terminate a person, whether they deserve it or not. It's just difficult to do. The hardest ones particularly are the layoffs, due to lack of work. And I think during these COVID times, you guys have been challenged. You've been challenged by the situations that we've been put into due to COVID. So I think I just want to point out that when you do a work performance concern, sometimes we judge and we decide, oh yeah, you know, I got to talk to this person because there's something wrong. And that is something that you need to follow up. You need to listen and you need to figure out what's going on, because there are four options that happen when you deal with a work performance concern. First of all, you might find it's just a misinterpretation, and you'll follow up, shows you that there really wasn't a performance concern and that it's cleared with the discussion. I had a situation where I thought this manager was actually sharing a resume with somebody outside of the company, and that was really a breach of confidentiality. When I followed up on it, there was actually a scenario that justified what he was doing, and I understood what he was doing. And so there really, to me, was no need to go further to express my concern, but we had this healthy discussion. The second thing is accommodation. An accommodation will be where, when you talk to the person, maybe they have concerns, they're being late, they're being, you know, they're not getting their work done, they're missing deadlines. And when you just talk to them, you discover that it's a situation that is due to a health issue or a family situation, and that you need to have some form of accommodation. The third one will be where when you do investigate, there will be performance issues. And the last one will be serious misconduct, and the serious concerns, such that you'll want to talk to the lawyer, or if you have your in-house HR experts, talk to them, and it will result in immediate dismissal. But you need to make sure that it results in immediate dismissal, because you do not want to get into a situation where you need to deal with a legal address from the person that you terminated. Some of those unacceptable work performances that we mentioned earlier could be bullying, harassment, quantity and quality of the work, the resistance to change, such as particularly safety and compliance issues, and then those serious misconducts like theft, fraud, assault, and intoxication at work. So this is a high level of addressing work performance concerns, because you could spend a whole day or a half-day workshop just on addressing it. I do want to get into just having some discussion on this, but typically you get a concern. You don't know if it's true or false, but you'll validate that concern and investigate. Then you determine that it's non-disciplinary, as I gave you the example before, and you may want to just record the discussion in an email to the person. Yeah, further to this, you know, we talked about it, you know, and then there's, like, you wouldn't say there's no disciplinary action, but you would imply through there that everything is okay. I understand where you're coming from. The next one would be where you start disciplinary action. And so some of you who've been involved in that would know it's progressive. You start off by, you know, saying, we have a concern, I do not expect any further examples of this, you've shown remorse, things along those lines. And then if it continues, then you get more and more progressive. And if you have a policy in your organization, you would know about letters and progressive letters and documentation really being important. If it does not resolve itself, or if it's a serious offense that requires you to terminate effective immediately, then you would then terminate. But typically, letters outlining progressive discipline and documentation is the way often it goes. When you get to that point of terminating, you really should use HR expertise and HR legal advice. My word of advice, though, is it's very often hard to terminate somebody in a progressive disciplinary way, because if the person decides to take legal action, there is so much onus on you to show that you've done everything possible, which includes training, it includes, you know, well written up action plans, well thought through. So tips and strategies for having these difficult conversations would be to start from a place of neutrality. Do not make the assumption that this person has a disciplinary issue. As I said, the situation where I was talking to somebody, I shared with him, this is what I found has happened. Can we talk about that? So always start from that position of neutrality and then listen. And don't listen with the thought of thinking what you're going to say. Just listen to gather information. And when you do that, you're showing respect for that person. You're treating them as an equal, and you're not passing judgment. Once you've heard what they've said, you can then have that discussion and work towards resolving the solution. But don't be afraid to say you don't know the answer, that you need to think about it and contemplate what to do, and then have a follow-up. But make sure you do follow up rather than not say anything. This strategy, whether it's about discipline or just in general, will help you towards strengthening respectful relationships. I want to stop there then. Jenny, if you can, is there anything in the chat line?
No, nothing so far.
Okay. I want to talk a little bit about examples, but I don't know what kind of examples that you want to talk about. I'm just going to carry on till we get to the question period. Start thinking about some scenarios that you want to ask about with regards to work performance, because I focus on high level the steps in terms of do's and don'ts of work performance. And part of it is do things that will prevent you to get to a stage of serious performance concerns. But we need to also talk about those. So do put in the chat. So one of the things we've been doing is we've been doing these webinars now, and we are on episode 23. So this is a list of the episodes that we have done in terms of working remotely, dealing with difficult conversations, how to optimize work performance, building strong work cultures. They are all accessible on YouTube. You will get a copy of today's presentation as well as the slides, as well as the YouTube. So if you're interested, you can select one of these, or actually go to our YouTube and subscribe to the channel and listen to them. So we can help you. I'm happy to have a 30-minute strategy call with people if you're interested. And if you're interested in knowing how your company is doing with some of the HR strategies, policies, procedures that you have, then we're going to send you a free copy of our HR assessment tool that you can do on your own, and that will help you get a pulse of your organization. A list of our upcoming webinars. We have next week, we're going to be doing how to accommodate staff requests to return to work. There are different ways of doing it, and I'm going to have a good discussion on those possibilities with people and how to handle that. The following week is don't let mishandling, bullying, and harassment ruin your company's reputation. I find too many companies they have policies and procedures, but the culture is still one of bullying, and people are not talking about it and handling it as individuals. Other upcoming sessions will be on how to rev up your management skills, and we're bringing back Stuart Rudner, who's going to talk about HR law. So I want to know I want to give special thanks to East Gwillimbury, but before we do that, any questions out there? Jenny?
Yeah, we actually do. Quite some good questions. One asked, how do you get managers away from the if I don't see you, you're probably not working mentality?
I think managers have to have trust. They have to build trust. These are people who have a great sense of responsibility to the role. What they need to think about is, how do I help build potential in my employees, in my staff members, so that I can trust them, that I don't micromanage? And maybe understanding that making mistakes is also a learning opportunity. Sometimes if you hold their hand too much, then when they may fail big time. The other thing is if you hold their hand too much, you'll strangle them. People do not want to work where they are under the watchful eye. It is very, very stressful. And those are the people that will end up leaving. So if you're that kind of manager and you find people leaving all the time, regularly, and you find that you have this need to micromanage, look at yourself. Look how you can change yourself and figure out how you will be able to let go and feel comfortable with letting go. How did I answer that question? You have a further need? You want to come out or just write on the chat line or the Q&A?
I think it's, she said thanks.
Okay.
So on the other hand, it's also a work from home issue. The challenge is with employees who like don't really use their camera and work is not getting done, even though they promised it continuously. And even though they continuously offer to help, like they're not really helping. So I think on this part of the question, managers see that, right? And like there is a lot of silence. Like what should they do to tackle this challenge with kind of managing these employees?
This one sounds like a serious issue. I mean, this is not just a one-off, and it's not, you're not getting good explanations. So this is one where you're going to have to set up a meeting and a Zoom meeting where the person physically has to show their face. I know a lot of people after about week 3 stopped showing their face on Zoom because it was a hygiene issue. Their hair was getting way too long, or just they didn't feel presentable. But I think you need to sit down with this person, not sit down, but you need to say, I need to talk to you regarding, some concerns with work. Maybe that's not the best way, but just set up a meeting and then have the face-to-face. They literally have to be on Zoom and face Zoom, and then explain to them, just like I said, in a neutral way, say, this is the observation, exactly what you said, that they're not delivering and it's repetitive. And what you say is that culture of accountability. This cannot continue. This is not acceptable. Please share with me why you are not delivering on time and why you're not. So just ask the questions and be respectful, and then listen and continue. When you think you've heard enough, just say, is there more to this? Share some more. Then you start that dialogue. But this sounds to me like this is not acceptable behavior, and you need to make sure that that person knows this is not acceptable behavior and they have to change. And then you set out an action plan that you both agree on and that person signs off on. And then you follow up. If you say, in 1 week's time, we are going to meet again to get a progress report. I want to make sure your deliverables are done on time. I want to make sure you communicate with me when you will not be able to meet these deadlines. Because if this continues, I'm going to suspend you. Like think of whatever that progressive discipline is. If you need to terminate somebody, oftentimes it's hard to terminate them based on progressive action. You need lots of it. But as a business, you have the right to terminate anybody at any time for any reason, for no reason. You don't have to give it. And that would be without cause. So I'm happy to have a further dialogue with you. You can, do the 30-minute consultation, but this is good for people to know. So oftentimes you can terminate people not for cause, and you do not mention the progressive discipline that you've been working on. You just say that the fit isn't good. And the fit being is you're not accountable and we're running a business, but you don't have to share that.
I think another main concern here is that it could be some struggles with mental health or either isolation problems, but they don't want to open up.
And this is where that neutral and listening comes in, you know, because you could say, you know, this is really serious because this is affecting your ability to do your job, but it's also affecting our company. You know, is there something that we can help you with? Because we have, you know, that we want to support you. If there's something going on, you need to share that. You know, we can help you. So again, you know, you don't have to put the heavy hammer on, because if you find out that there is this sense that the person might be stressed, yes, by all means. And thank you for pointing that out, Jenny. One of the things that I share in previous webinars is about mental health. And number two, disciplinary cause for disabilities or illness in 2020 will be depression. This is the expectation, that there's so much stress going on that people really are becoming more disengaged, they're being withdrawn, they're missing deadlines, they're late. And that's why you have that inquiry. And as I mentioned earlier, there are 4 scenarios that that person may need accommodation, that they may be, you know, stressed and actually depressed and they don't even know it. Particularly those people who, in working remotely, are people that live alone. They live in a condo and they have no interaction with other people because it's hard, and they don't have family that are close by. So that is one thing, is when you get to know people, you know that they're living alone, or that they might, you know, have more stress than others. Any other questions? I know we're a little bit over time, but these questions are good. Any others, Jenny?
No, I think that's it for now.
Okay. Well, I'd like to give special thanks to East Gwillimbury Chamber of Commerce, because they help us and share in promoting our webinar series. Do you want to come forward, Lauren?
Hi, I'm here now.
And I'm just going to flash this on my screen, but yes, I'm going to stop sharing. Go ahead.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Hilda, again, for partnering with us. I think you gave a lot of really great tips and advice and great answers to those questions. I think more now than ever, it's very important for us to be communicating with our employees. You know, there are concerns from people with them working at home, mental health issues, like you said. So I think the more that you're in touch with your employees and communicate with them, the better, you know, you can make things for them. So, and people like to work hard for people that seem to care about them. So I think it's important. So thank you very much for this session. It was great.
Great, thanks. And thank you again, everybody. It was nice for people to join us. I see Leah said to all panelists, thanks. So stay safe, everybody, and hope you'll join us for our next webinar next Wednesday. Thanks. Bye.